Hi everyone. My name is Ahmed, and we thought to put this together to be a session where we discuss some of the questions that we often get or we try to talk about when it comes to deciding where to relocate to outside of Nigeria. We know a lot of people have been taking steps to seek new opportunities outside of Nigeria. And a lot of it really depends on the kind of information you have at hand, access to some of the tools that would help you, and generally what you know about relocation and how to do that. So the plan is to make this some sort of a continuing series, if the feedback is good. And the first one is going to be we talking about Europe as the destination and looking at two countries which we have a huge or a significant Nigerian tech presence, which is UK and Germany. So I'm going to have to mute people until you have questions. Or if you can mute yourself without me muting you, that would be really, really great. So we're planning for this to be a session that is going to take less than 1 hour, 30 minutes. We're going to have 1 hour discussion with the folks on the panel. We're going to have about 20 minutes to take questions from the audience and 5 minutes just to get ourselves informed about what's going to happen next. Housekeeping, if you have any questions, you can wait till the end of the session, or you just send it via chat, or you put it on Twitter using the hashtag, or you use this particular form that is in the link that was shared earlier to submit your questions. There are a couple of questions there which I have already added to the questions we're going to talk about with the panel. But if anything comes up while they're talking, you can either use the chat or use the form, or just post it through Twitter, then we're going to take it from there. Please try not to unmute yourselves while the discussion is still going on. I know I'm supposed to mute everyone, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So I'm just going to count on everyone to be civil enough to not unmute and interrupt, and probably just raise their hand when they want to ask questions. So today we are joined by 4 people who live in different parts of the world, and they have relocated from Nigeria, and they work in tech in one capacity or the other. From Manchester in the UK, we have Omotola. From Hamburg in Germany, we have Stephen. London, UK, we have Udo. And in Berlin, Germany, we have Yewande. You can see all of them. They have their video on. And my name is Ahmed. I'll be moderating. And Abisere is hosting us on Zoom. I have to first say a very big thank you to the 4 of them for joining us and taking time out of their schedule to answer a lot of those questions and share their thoughts and experiences. So the panel discussion is going to look at a couple of things, which we've tried to group under themes. Things like the interview stages, the salary negotiations, how to find a job, how to prepare for relocation, and how you are going to be experiencing the abroad life when you move. So we're going to go right into it. Or before we do that, actually, let's just have the people on the panel introduce themselves so you get more familiar with what they are doing right now, where they are, and what they're looking forward to in this session. Stephen, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Stephen Afamasemne. I'm a software engineer in Hamburg, Germany, with a company called Engel and Forecast. Yeah, that's about it. I'm not sure. I moved in 2019 December, so only about like 14 months now, not too long. Yeah, that's about it.
Thanks, Stephen. Udo.
Hi, my name is Udo. I'm a software engineer here in London as well. I used to live in Berlin for almost 2 years. I moved in 2017, and then I decided to move to London 2 years ago, also in 2019, I think. Yeah, 2018 and 2019, yeah. So before then, I was working in Nigeria. I did some stuff with Andela and then few remotes for like a year.
Thanks for that. Amata.
Hi everyone, I'm Amatola. I moved to Manchester, UK, I think like 5 years ago. I actually came for my undergraduate studies, and now I'm done. I'm working as a backend engineer at Ampersand UK in Manchester as well.
Thanks, Amatola. Yewande.
Hi everyone. So yeah, as Ahmed said, my name is Yewande. I live in Berlin. I moved to Germany in January of 2019. I initially moved to Hamburg and then I moved to Berlin at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic. Yeah, I worked in Nigeria for about 5 years before I moved to Germany.
Thanks, Yewande. So what we have tried to do is try to find a bit of mix between different roles, different experiences, just to make sure that everyone on the panel can get some of their questions. Everyone in the audience can get a lot of their questions answered. So let's jump in. So I think this question is related to finding a job and is one of the first questions that I usually get when people ask about jobs generally outside of Nigeria. So specifically to the UK and Germany, I'm going to start with you, Stephen. What do you say is a good strategy to employ when you're finding opportunities? Because a lot of people, the first step is finding that opportunity, right? How do you find those opportunities? How do you see them in abundance? From your own perspective in Hamburg, how does that work? Oh, you're on mute.
So when I was looking specifically for Go jobs. So, this meant like the Golang Slack, the jobs channel where that is. There is on Golang Works. There's a bunch of them, but more Go specific sites. Of course, I was also from, let's say, something like Patreon. I've taken that. I also used Stack Overflow jobs, which was ironic because I didn't think it would work out like Stack Overflow jobs, right? But surprisingly, that's where the job I finally got. That's where it came from. I would say like apply as much as possible. If the primary reason is to leave, I think I would say apply as much as possible. For almost everybody I know that's looking for a job, you would apply more than you think you need to apply. Like, I'm pretty sure I sent hundreds of applications and not too many interviews. So it's like you would definitely apply a lot more than you think. So anywhere you can see, register, send in your applications.
So, I mean, that's interesting, right? Because with sending your applications, probably Udo can take this one. With sending your application, there is a bit of different sources, right? There is LinkedIn, there are company job boards. If you know the specific company you're going to, there are also recruiters who actually recruit, right? And are dedicated to roles. What would you say is a good strategy looking at those options?
For me, I would say for the most of my jobs have come from two places, right? LinkedIn and Hacker News. Right? And I find LinkedIn very useful because you already have your skills there, right? Recruiters can see your profile and they can try to match you to the best possible jobs. So I think LinkedIn is a very good strategy, keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date. I think that has worked very, very well for me. But then there's something else again. There's so if you are planning to move to Nigeria and I feel like they fall into two categories, right? If you're planning to move abroad, sorry, I think the skill level falls into categories. If you are very experienced and then if you are not very experienced. Now, if you are very experienced, right, it's definitely going to be easier for you to use LinkedIn and other profiles. But if you are not very experienced, it's not really, LinkedIn is not really set up for your own success because, of course, there are not like so many interesting things you've done on there because you're just starting out. So I think that's where this small job portals kind of like make sense, like Hacker News, where you actually get to meet these small startup owners, like have that conversation with them, and sort of get something going.
Oh, that makes sense. So yeah, the point about looking at those smaller companies, right, that are looking to hire less experienced people. Do you have any thoughts about reaching out directly to the company or using their recruiters, Omotola? What do you have any ideas around that?
I think even before I speak on that, like I think it's also important, especially in the UK, I don't know how it works in Germany, to also like go for the companies that actually sponsor, because if like you're not applying to those companies and you're like trying to strike conversation, at some point they'll be like, we don't sponsor, so sorry, I can't really like continue with this conversation. But in terms of like reaching out, like on LinkedIn, you can go through their HR people, send them a message saying this is what your experience is, or you can send them an email and say, okay, this is what my experience is. I've seen your job post, this is what I can offer, etc. But I think with that, even in the pandemic now, it might not really be useful unless like your first header is very, very catchy and then you can get onto that message really quick. If not, some people just like don't really look at it and yeah, might not get a chance there. But I think if I wanted to do that, send them a personal message on LinkedIn or send an email.
That's really helpful, actually. Yewande, for roles that are not, so I mean, a lot of people are software engineers in the audience, I would assume, but a lot of people are not software engineers as well. Do you think there's anything specific about that strategy that Udo, Stephen, and Amanda last talked about that would work differently if you're not in a software engineering or core software engineering role?
Yes, so I think all the strategies that have been mentioned are applicable to all roles, software engineering or data analysis or UX or product. I think what you need to do if you are not a software engineer is that you need to search more strategically. So I think for me, what I did was I took advantage of keywords when I was searching, because software engineering jobs are way more than the other jobs, the other non-technical jobs in quotes. But the thing is that they still exist, right? So you need to search more, like you need to be more strategic when you search for them. So you might not, so for example, as a product manager, most product management roles in Germany are not called, the titles are not product management, they're called product owners. You won't know that except you have done your research. Or yeah, so you need to like research about like what are they called. In some countries they're called data, like analyst, business analyst, but you're doing product management. So you need to be strategic about like searching for not just the title of the role, right, but also like what they do. So you're skilled with let's say wireframing, right? You will not see a job that's called a wireframer but you look in the job description at what they are looking for and say, okay, this matches my skill, so I can apply for this, even though the title is not what you are familiar with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very, very good point, right? Because so back home, you would hear a lot of UI, UX experienced people, right? And also you will see product designer. And at some point, you would probably see the cross between the skills they're looking for in those particular roles, right? So yeah, it makes sense to actually go the route of using specific skills to actually look for the roles. Now, I'm still going to stay on year one day, and I want us to talk about how much your work history in Nigeria, how much does it affect your chances of getting a job when you want to relocate?
Yes, I would say it's very important because unfortunately you're coming from a disadvantaged place, right? Like not in a place, not exactly disadvantaged, but the way people view Africa and Nigeria, it's like we're not very well known to have the skills the way maybe Indians or Russians have technical skills. So if you're coming with an empty portfolio or with no experience, it's very, very hard to prove that you can do the job. That's one. And then also, even when you have work experience, it's not even your work experience that speaks for you. It is what you have done, the results that you have documented that will speak for you. Yeah, I think for me, I guess it was a mix of being lucky and also being deliberate. A lot of the achievements at my former place of work, they were well documented on the internet. So even while I was applying and I said I had this experience, I could show that, oh, you know what, I launched this product, I worked with this team. And then I think also to even if when you don't have work experience. So for me, I didn't have direct product management work experience in Nigeria, but I was able to take skills from my former role, which I was doing in Nigeria, and I was able to transition into product management. So I didn't have a lot of management experience in Nigeria, but my previous experience as like doing other things, because I had worked a lot in Nigeria, I was able to kind of like explain it to the recruiter and during my interviews. So yes, if you have work experience, it will be an advantage for you, regardless of the work experience. Well, that depends on what you're applying for, right? As a software engineer, like products like mechanical work experience might not work for you so much, but you might be able to strategically transfer these work experiences. But if you don't have, it's still not you're still not hopeless. There are still ways you can work around it.
Yeah, I think the point you made about documenting for visibility actually resonates, right? Because you're looking for a job in a different context entirely, right? So creating that visibility to the work you've done is quite important, I'd say. So Stephen,
I wanted
for
to okay.
oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I wanted to add to what you wanted to just finish saying now, just kind of piggyback off of it. So I think, like she mentioned, even if you don't have that much extensive work experience in Nigeria, I don't think all hope is lost. This is because there are a bunch of companies that have internship programs that you can actually join, mostly in the UK. I don't know about Germany, but they have so many companies that are doing internships, and they also have new graduate roles. So most people don't know about these roles when they hear like new graduate roles. So I know a few people that have come in here like through internships, and even more that have gotten graduate roles. Graduate roles are like for people that have like zero experience, like zilch. So there are programs like that. And I think Goldman Sachs is one, Bloomberg is one, basically target like really big companies. And one thing I also wanted to mention again about Nigerian experience is that I don't think, even though Nigerian experiences, the experience is very valuable, I don't think it holds so much weight because most times I see people who have extensive experience in Nigeria, but then when they move here, they don't really start at senior levels. So it's mostly like a midweight kind of level that they put you. Of course, there are some exceptions, but like, yeah, that's how far it can take us actually.
Yeah. There's actually one of the questions that we'll be talking about in detail about internship, which is really good that you actually raised that up. Stephen, so there are some people who would say, even when you're working in Nigeria and your plan is to relocate, target companies that have visibility outside of Nigeria, e.g. the Paystacks, the Andela, the people who have probably headquarters outside of Nigeria. How much impact do you think that would have in your job search when you're in Nigeria? Do you need to specifically target those companies to work for them so that you can increase your visibility, or do you think it really doesn't matter?
Honestly, I wouldn't know too much because I'm not like I haven't been in the position where I'm sitting in the room and you're actually considering, oh, do we hire this person or that person? I can say that I'm working for a company that's very visible. Let's say, oh, they got a TechCrunch article about them or something. Does drive the impression that, oh, you are like your skills are not just this local Nigerian thing, that you're actually doing something that's globally relevant, right? But I would say that so for that, I'm not sure it matters as much, especially for software engineering. Or okay, sorry, let me make this structured. It matters to be able to get an interview, right? Because first you're going to apply and you're not going to be able to impress them or anything apart from what's on paper. So it matters getting a call like, oh, let's get you into the interview, right? But as far as you can get into the interview, at least for software development roles, now, because that's the one I'm familiar with, It then depends on how much you can impress them during that interview, right? Because you then ask maybe some take-home test or build this thing, or how would you do this, or how would you do that, right? So it now depends on how much you can impress them with your knowledge.
Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of years of experience, Omotola, how do you think that matters when you're looking for a role in the UK?
I think I'm just going to piggyback off what Udo said. So like, because I say my role as a graduate, so I had like literally zero experience. So the good thing about the UK here is that they've got a lot of opportunities when it comes to software engineers that maybe do not have a lot of experiences, that graduate role entry that you can get to. But like in terms of like how many more experiences and other jobs offers, they can say, oh, we need this level of experience for you to get this job, etc. But I think for me, because of what I've experienced, I've not really worked. I did a placement year, which was 1 year, and I wouldn't really count that. But let's just say I say it as zero, and I was still able to get a graduate role. So I think it doesn't really like impact it. You can still come in even though you don't have that much experience, because there are these opportunities to start your internships or enter graduate roles.
Nice. So, moving on to this particular problem, right? We often, or I often hear with a lot of people and saying that would say, "Oh, I'm an experienced developer. I do have some years of experience in Nigeria. I'm struggling to get a lot of callbacks after I make applications. What am I doing wrong?" Udo, can you give some insight into that? What has been your experience with that particular line of thinking? What could you be doing wrong that would not let you get callbacks?
I mean, we've all experienced this, but I would say, first of all, right, we are in the middle of a pandemic right now. If you're not getting callbacks, honestly, that's fine. It's crazy out there. So it's crazy because I have friends that are also looking for roles and they get this really hard. So right now, yeah, this what we have right now is like a special situation, right? We have a market that has shrunk, and then we have a lot of overqualified people out there in the market, right? So the top competition is only going to get tougher, but then this is going to improve. Sorry, guys, for the background noise. This
Yeah.
is going to improve with time, right? Um, but if you're not getting callbacks, there are certain things you can look at, right? So one thing is your resume, because you might see, is there a problem with my resume? How do you structure these things, right? I mean, in Nigeria, we are not really taught how to structure your resume or do all these things. You kind of have to figure it out as you go. I mean, one experience I had was one time I was applying for a role. I didn't get this role, but these guys were kind enough to help me review my resume. So it was a small startup in Hong Kong, and like two young guys, and then they helped me sort of clean up my resume. They didn't give me the job, but it was like one of the best things that happened to me. My resume has almost always looked like that even till now. So that's something I think sometimes you have to like look at the resume and like how people structure those things. Especially how most times from what I've seen here, most people are looking for numbers, right? Your resume should sort of contain those numbers. Like um, one mistake most people do is they just list all the skills that they've done. Oh, I know JavaScript and Go and all these things. You could say, okay, I use social technology to build social product that had social result. A result could be like, oh, it improved performance by X%, it saved the customer social amount of money. Because at the end of the day, what we are solving is business problems. So I think one thing you can do at that point, because honestly, there's nothing you have, it's just your resume, is kind of try to refine that resume and, try and like look for where the bottlenecks are and just fix them.
That's really helpful. Stephen, so in cases where you are experiencing this kind of zero response, right? Does it help if you target positions that require less experience that you have? Is that like a cheat way of getting in?
I don't know. So for me, what I've seen is both for me and the people I know who are applying for this type of roles is it usually takes longer than you think it would, because at least I'm a very confident person, right? I feel okay, I know this, I know this, I know this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. But then you now start applying and you apply 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, and then maybe two people are calling you for interview. And after 3-4 weeks of doing this, you're sitting thinking like, have I been overestimating myself? But I just think that sometimes the problem is not us, right? Sometimes is if the recruiter will tell you maybe, oh, they were hiring and now they've stopped, or their budget got cut, or they picked someone else because you want to hire 3 people and you have 10 qualified people. So sometimes the problem is not you. It could also have been my resume because honestly, I just don't care. Right? So I do the basic minimum, like, okay, if you're going to call me, you're going to call me, right? If you put a cover letter, I'm not applying anymore. So all these other ways that I could maybe have impressed to get a call back, I didn't do because I can be lazy like that. But I would say for me, sometimes it's just a numbers game. You do. Like if you're noticing a like 5% callback rate, right? That's maybe 1 out of every 20. Then if you want 10 applications, you have make 10 interviews, you make 200 applications. It's hard, it takes a hit to your confidence, but sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you one day when Uda was talking about some opportunities earlier, he was talking about internship opportunities. So this is directed at people who are just kicking off their tech journey. In Germany, in Berlin, what kind of opportunities do you think are available for those? So people who just want to get into tech, but they still want to relocate, what kind of opportunities do you think are available for them?
So if you are currently in Nigeria and you want an entry-level internship level experience in Germany, it's going to be a little bit difficult. I haven't met anyone so far, except it's like I know of exchange programs where like people in school, they come to do their IT in Germany and then they go back. That's possible. But if I'm being honest, Germany is looking for experienced tech people. Like that's just the truth. So even if there's some graduates that come, but I've not seen any in a graduate position. Also, the visa that most tech people come with into Germany is called the blue card, and there's a minimum there's a minimum salary requirement to getting the blue card. And if we're being honest, the salary requirement is a little bit higher than what entry-level graduates would earn. So if you want to get that visa, then you have to earn a certain amount. If you want to earn a certain amount, you need to have a certain level of experience. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. But what I would recommend for people that this is longer actually, and it's not everyone's route. If you're a student in Germany, getting internship experience, like there are a lot of internship positions that you can take advantage of. And the good thing about education in Germany is that it's kinda free, not completely free, but it's kind of, you don't pay tuition, you pay other things, but yeah, it's cheaper than most other countries in the world. So it's a longer route, yeah, but it's still a route worth looking into. So like education in Germany is about 2 years, and then at the beginning of your second year, you have to do like a placement or an internship thing, and that way you can get your leg into companies that way. But if you're coming in directly from Nigeria, I don't know of anyone that has done an internship. Actually, thinking about it now, this was not an internship opportunity. There is something called the job seekers visa, which people can take advantage of. It's difficult to get, but I know someone that has gotten it, so it's not impossible. With the job seekers visa, you can come to Germany to kind of search for a job, and then when you get a job, you get a work visa, not a blue card. So if you're able to get a job seekers visa, you can come into Germany. The person I know that did it came into Germany, took a boot camp. Is it Lewagon? There's a very popular boot camp school for 6 months. I think the visa was for a year. So it took a boot camp for 6 months, and then got like an internship after the 6 months, and eventually started growing in his career. So that's another option if you want to do get an internship position here.
That's actually brilliant. I didn't know about that. So let's talk more about the internship opportunities in the UK, Omotola. So I personally, I know a couple of people who finished uni in Nigeria, and they're able to actually get their first job in the UK. And how does that work from your own experience?
So do you want to talk about the internships? Because I don't know about like people that are looking for internships from back home here, but now that like everything is kind of remote, that might still be possible for them. They could still like apply for the internship, but then it would still be remote there.
Mhm.
Well, because there's also opportunity to come here as a graduate, like I did. But like I did my undergrad here, so then I finished and then I got the job. So what happened was that I applied for the company and I knew that they sponsored. So immediately after I finished my university, I applied to them, and then they were able to, since they sponsor visas, they were able to then help me out with the whole giving me the certificate of sponsorship. And so after I got that, I was able to then apply to get my visa to then start working with them. But that was under a tier 2 visa. I think that has changed now to what they call skilled worker visa because of this whole EU thing that is happening. And apparently with that whole skilled worker visa, you don't even necessarily have to have an undergraduate degree. As long as you have up to that, what they call A level, you're still able to like apply to the companies to come here. And I think there's more opportunity for people to come in like into a graduate role than internships, because what these companies want to do is employ you and keep you here for the long run, other than just a short period of time. And they're not even sure if you're going to be here for longer or not. So if I was in Nigeria wanting to come here, I think I would shoot more for the graduate roles that, or for companies that do sponsor, that are trying to get like an internship. But Udo said he knows some people that like got internships here, so maybe he can shed more light on that.
Yeah. Basically, this would have got internships targeting big companies. So there are tons of companies that offer internships to students in Nigeria, Lagos, Unilag, tons of them in Unilag, Covenant University. Yeah, basically Goldman Sachs, Bloomberg, Facebook, Google as well, and like a bunch of them. So I would say if you're in school right now, and I think you should just start applying to these internships. Just get your resume in their hands and just start that conversation with them. It kind of makes things easier down the road.
Awesome. So I think we did. I think that's a lot of discussion on finding a job. So we're going to move on to now talking about the interview stages. So Stephen, usually there are multiple rounds of interviews. From my own experience, what do you think people should expect in their first, second, and other stages of the interviews? And at what point does it become clear to them that, I mean, I would expect that everyone on this panel knows what it feels like when you know that you have actually gotten in. You're just waiting for that letter, or you're just waiting for someone to confirm. So what should they expect? And at one point is it clear that, oh yeah, I'm actually getting this job?
Well, so at least for the companies I interviewed for, the process is usually first there's a talk with the recruiter where they'll tell you, okay, this is how the team is structured, this is that, this is the company. They'll ask you a little bit about your experience and whatnot, right? And then usually the next one is some sort of technical interview, where there's now let's say a senior engineer, or usually a senior engineer or architect or whatever they call them in the company, where they'll talk to you a bit about, okay, how would you do that? Then it's either they will give you if there's like a take-home test or something, right? It's either they'll give you during that interview, or that's now the next step where they either send you something and be like, oh, submit this within 2 hours or 1 week. Like I had one that was like 2 hours, do this and submit in 2 hours. And now it was like 1 week and it was a whole presentation.
I'm sorry.
And then there was so after that one, if that goes through, then usually there's now a step where you talk to the CTO, yeah, or maybe like an engineering manager, but pretty much the top or second top technical person in the organization. And as far as I know, until after that last call, like depending on the vibe you get from that last call, you would know if you gotten or not, because you could have impressed everybody and then talk to the CTO and the guy's like, I don't really like it, and then that's it, right? So until after that last call, then it's still there.
That makes sense. Yewande, what are the expectations for product roles, the interview stages? How does that look like?
Yeah, it's also very similar. Instead of a coding challenge, you also have like a product case study challenge, which sometimes is a take home and sometimes you take back. I think for me, it was for most companies that I've interviewed in, it's kind of like clear that you will probably get the job after you have worked with after you've had the interview with the team. So the first stage, as Steven said, is for HR. Second stage is for the case study or for the test. Third stage is usually like talking with the team. They want to know if they like working with you. And then the fourth stage is talking with the person, the orga at the top. And then usually the team members, if they like you, even when if the CTO doesn't really like you, they can kind of like defend you that we want these people. I've seen that happen a couple of times. Which will also take me back to like the question that was asked about like not getting a call back. A reason why you might not be getting a call back, even though you are very skilled, is because people don't like you. And that's the truth. And the thing is that when you are interviewing, apart from your skill, the biggest thing people are looking at is how personable are you. No matter how skilled you are, if they think you're a jerk, they're not going to call you back. That's the truth. Or if they feel like you can't communicate well, or you're going to be more of a burden to the team than a benefit to the team, that's one of the reasons why you might not get a call back. So this is apart from your resume. After you have gotten through the started interview stage and you find that they're not calling you back after any of these stages. So at the end of the day, the interview process is you dealing with people. Yeah, and that's something you need to perfect. But I would say until they tell you that you have gotten the job, always err on the side of caution.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, what I take out of that is, in addition to the technical skills, it also makes sense to focus on your soft skills as well. So give me a minute. I'm going to try to mute everyone now and just unmute the speakers because we're getting a lot of background noise. So mute everyone. Okay, I think I got that fixed. Okay, so still talking about the interview stages. Udo, let's talk about this. How should I prepare for my interviews? When I have culture fit interviews, what should I do? When I have technical sessions, how should I prepare for that? When I'm interviewing with senior members of the team or the organizations, what should I do?
Yeah, so culture fit technical. I'm going to start with the technical one, and then I'll touch other ones. So I think technical software engineering interviews are like three kinds, right? There are online assessments, and then there are in-person interviews, and then there's a take-home, right? For the online assessment, they might be testing for various things. They might be testing for the one that nobody likes, data structure algorithms, or they might be testing for certain technologies, right? But I think if you are going for much smaller companies, they might not be targeting some of those core CS kind of questions. But if you're going for bigger companies, they are most likely going to be targeting it. So I would say you want to be prepared for that, especially for online assessment. There's this, they just give you a board where there's a timer and then you have to solve certain questions and get that out of the door like as quickly as possible. So, but then if you're doing in-person technical ones, I think speed is the name of the game there too. You really have to know what you're doing, and you really have to show that, oh, okay, you can actually get something done. And for culture fit, I think the thing with culture fit is that you can't really every single organization have their own culture and they have what culture fit means to them. But generally, I think people want someone that they can work with, like has been echoed in the room now. Someone that's very nice to work with, someone that's not really, an a or something like that. So I think it's really, in as much as you can't be a very terrible person to work with, I think it might be in your best interest to portray yourself as someone that's really great to work with. So yeah, I think when they ask you questions like ability to work under pressure, blah blah blah. But I also think that while you are trying to present yourself as a very nice person, you also don't want to overdo. There's a point where people do these things and then it sounds fake. It's like, this guy, are you that nice? So it's like you don't want to overdo it though, but you want to be genuine, but not, just if you're like, perfect and that. I think interviewing with senior engineers, yeah. So interviewing with more senior engineers okay, I think
Of
this one is a
the
bit,
organization.
yeah. So I think this one is a bit tricky though, because for most senior roles, senior engineers, yeah, they are looking for different things. I was in a room the other day, which was hosted by me, where people were talking about what are senior engineers looking for. Are they looking for depth in a certain technology? Are they looking for breadth in a range of technologies? These things. But I think one thing that I've seen most of the time is, aside from the technical skills, they also want to see other software engineering skills as well. That is leadership skills, being able to drive a conversation, being able to drive a meeting like this, being able to drive a project from start to finish. Coding is just one part, and it's a very small part of being a software engineer. There are other things like, testing, basically the people stuff. I think, and as you get more senior, right, is that people skill becomes more and more important. So I think you might want to demonstrate that. So most people like Amazon, they call it like leadership. So they have their whole 7 principles of leadership. They might not say it explicitly, but I think people want to see that you've led teams before. They want to see those leadership skills, and projects that you've led.
Thanks, Udo. Amatola, from your own experience, how much impact does doing a research on the company you're working for, learning about their culture and what they do, how does it impact any of these interviews?
It does, because it just shows like that you're showing genuine interest in the company that you want to work for. So sometimes they do like ask you questions about things, or they ask you if you have any questions for them. And then if you have a question that shows that you've done your research about them, it shows that, okay, you've gone the extra mile to actually take time to research on what this company is all about. I think the interviewer might be impressed about the fact that you know what you're talking about. And for like graduate entry roles, I think normally they want to test your foundation in whatever programming languages that you're going to be working on. And sometimes they might give you like technical tests to see like how well you can do stuff like that. And then if you're able to pass that, that's good. And you can also get situational questions as well. So if you're in a team, what would you do if this sort of thing happens? You can get that as well. But then when it comes to that part where they say, oh, do you have any questions for us? You'd be like, oh, I've been doing my research on this and I saw that. What do you think about this? It just drives that conversation, and it shows them that you're showing genuine interest in the company that you want to work for. That's what I think.
So, still on interviews, Yewande, what do you think? I mean, this question came up. Somebody's interviewing and they're considering multiple destinations and countries. Is that an okay conversation to have during your interview? Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I muted myself, so you had to unmute me. Yes, I think it's okay, and I think it's actually good if you let them know that you're considering other destinations, because, and this is actually if you are considering other destinations, because you don't want a case where you are talking with a vindictive person and then they use that to say, okay, get out of here. But usually it's you can use that as a bargaining chip, right? Because it's like you have other options, and you are basically not like you're showing that you are doing them a favor when you come, and it's always good to speak from a place of advantage during interviews. Yeah, it helps saying that you're considering other countries. It helps to like help you negotiate. One of the reasons why I moved to Berlin was because during my interview, the people, like the HR person, kept on telling me amazing things, why I would prefer Berlin to Hamburg, even though I told her I was considering still staying back at where I was. And yeah, she had to work a little bit harder to get me in just because I mentioned that. So it could work to your advantage. Yeah, I think in Nigeria it might not, because there's a perception of, you know what, you got take that one instead, right? There are more people on this queue. But if we're being honest, more times than not, if you are already at a stage where they're talking to you, they probably want you and they need you. So you might as well play to your strengths while you're there.
Okay. I mean, still on Does anyone have anything to add to that before I move on to the next question? Yeah, Uda was gonna ask something. I think, yeah, go ahead.
So I want to say that I think no matter how it feels, it's good not to be desperate. So that's this entire thing, right? Because someone asks you, are you considering this? It's fine. Udo said, like, don't be fake. Don't say, oh no, all my life I've dreamt of living in Hamburg. Honestly, you could be like, oh, I've thought about it, because genuinely, like, chances are you are considering other places. So don't be desperate. Be honest about, oh, I'm considering this. If you're considering it, if you have any doubts about the country, you ask. The person will tell you, oh, in Hamburg is like this, is like that. Like anybody in Hamburg will tell you, oh, the weather is shit, but like, well,
Yeah.
it's quiet or something. But yeah, so don't be fake about things if you're not. Yeah, that's it.
Uda, you're gonna say something. Do I have to unmute you? I can't see any button that tells me to unmute. Sorry.
This guy is the host now.
Oh, Abisoye, you'd have to unmute.
Okay.
Hey man, thank you for joining us.
Okay. I've asked to unmute.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine. Got it. Yeah, so about this, I think it's very, very important that you do have other options that you can use to leverage your negotiation offer. Like competing offers are always very, very good. They always put you in a good place in terms of negotiation. Like in terms of, especially when you're negotiating the final pay, right? Once I've had situations where I've had competing offers and I just say, hey, look, this is what these people are offering me. If you can do better, like I literally said that. And yeah, and it's like a business. They actually went back and then they looked at it and then they were like, yeah, we can actually do this and this and that. And so I think it's always very good to have those competing offers. It's like that's the best place to be in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think why this question came up was because typically when you're like you and they alluded to, when you're in Nigeria and you're thinking in that particular, how we have to deal with HR problems in Nigeria, where essentially where they're offering you a job, it feels like, oh, they're doing you a favor, right? But that mindset changes completely when you're applying for roles outside of Nigeria, which means you have to put yourself in that kind of mindset whereby you think it's okay to actually put in anything you think would enhance your chances of getting a better offer. So still on interview, Stephen, I have never worked in the abroad. How do I know what my expected salary range is when they ask me?
So I think this one is easier in Germany because the salary range is not that big, right? Like Yaron, they said, for the blue card, at least there's a minimum salary, which I think is around 54,000 a year, right? And I think maybe even senior devs are what, at like 80 or 85, like 100 above 100 is like really, really maybe almost C-level. So it's not the most lucrative place, especially when you think about, like, for example, US salaries. So the point is, the range is not that big, right? If you're going for a mid-level role, it will be somewhere between, let's say, 55 and 65. Like, it's just the way the market is currently. Then a little higher than that is maybe like from 65 to 75, 80. Then if you're going for what, like lead engineer or engineering manager, it's now 80 plus. So it's like, it's almost as if it's this standardized thing that it's not that difficult because of the way Germany is set up. I guess this will be a more valid question in, for example, somewhere like the US where things can get pretty wild. But yeah.
Okay. Yolanda, is that the same experience with Berlin?
Yes, exactly the same thing. We probably everybody knows what everybody earns because the brackets, and it's a bracket. Once you Google, you find like what's a mid-level or low-level product manager software engineer is earning. Also, it differs a little bit per city. Hamburg is a little bit more expensive than Berlin, so some Hamburg salaries might be a little bit higher than Berlin salaries or like Munich. So those are things you need to consider. But even though it's standardized, I would while the numbers might not look as encouraging as numbers in the UK or even in the US, but one thing to note is that Germany has a way lower cost of living than a lot of countries. a lot, especially the US or Canada, or even the UK, like a lot of things are pretty standardized, so they can find you. There are ways to discount it. So like you won't spend a lot on transportation, you won't spend a lot on feeding. So you won't make as much, but you also won't spend as much, which is something you also need to consider.
And that makes sense. So I'm going to talk to Omotola and Udo here to get what their perspective is with salary range in Omotola. So in Manchester, how does this work? So somebody who has never worked in abroad is thinking of moving to Manchester, and they want to know what their expected salary range is. You'd have to unmute her. I think the best is not to just mute yourself when you're done and hope nothing screams from your background.
Yeah, I think your one is. Yeah.
No, Omotola.
Okay. Oops. Yeah. I've asked to mute. Okay. She's on.
Yeah, so like I think for the tier 2, I think the minimum for entry level, I think it's like 21K or something. But then like what like I would do if I was coming from Nigeria is go on like websites like Glassdoor. They normally have like an average salary for depending on where you're living. And once you like look at that, you can then say, oh, like for graduates, maybe anything from like 26 to like 28. I think that's like the starting range for graduates on that website. And then for London, I think that's probably like higher. So it's depending on where you're living in the UK, your salary might be, the expectation might be lower or higher. But I think a good place to kind of get an average is to go on like websites like Glassdoor and check what the average salary is in that area they're planning on moving to. And then that way you can kind of say, oh, like, I think I should be getting this, or if they're offering you something, you'd be like, okay, that's a good amount that they're offering you.
That makes sense. Udo?
It's muted as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could do sign language, you know. But I don't know what was on mute. What's the sign language for on mute? That would be very useful.
I think you could just do your hands like this. You just do your hands like this.
Talk.
Okay. So yeah, like they mentioned, I think what they've all mentioned is correct. But I think London is like a unique case in itself. It can get pretty wild in London. Like it gets really high because there's finance here, and it can get very, very low for other reasons. So, but one thing I would say is, I mean, you almost would never know exactly what they will give you. So I would say never tell. Most times when I'm asked about my what I'm expecting or what my previous salary is, I just say, oh, because of legal blah blah blah, I cannot review my salary, and nobody questions you further than that. When you say it's legal, and you just say maybe something around like I expect to be paid in accordance with the company's salary structure, you know, and I hope it's competitive enough. You try and be diplomatic around it because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. But one thing I can say is for London, yeah, there's an app called Blind. It's like an anonymous forum for software engineers. Lots of techies on there. You can actually see these numbers. So you just go on there and then you post that, oh, you've got so offer. Is this number good? Or what are the offers like? And to be honest with you, I've got almost 99% accuracy of the salary on that app. So I would encourage you guys, especially for techies, just go on there. It's very toxic though. There's a lot of ism inside of it. So, but it's anonymous. So, you know, when people are anonymous, they show their real selves. So, yeah, the numbers there on Blind are very accurate with very high degree. It's crazy. So they tell you everything from bonuses to RSUs to base salary, every single thing. So that's something that's useful. But I also want to mention that the cost of living too varies. Like for London now, you get a very high salary, you get relatively lower tax compared to Berlin, but the cost of living is way higher, like much higher. So in Berlin, even though the salaries are not as high as London, you can actually go on for a very long time with not very much. And I also have to say the standard of living too in Berlin is way better. I've lived in Berlin for almost 2 years and now I'm in London. And I tell you this, even though in London you make more money, the quality of life in Berlin is way higher. Like here in London, it feels like the government is trying to like rob you. But in Berlin, it feels like the government is trying to carry you, you know. But that's my own feeling, you understand? So it's like the government is trying to pat you on the back, So it depends on the things you value, it depends on what you're valuing. Are you chasing money right now, or you just want to chill? So, it depends on what you value.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, in summary, it's if you want money, go to London. If you want to live long, go to Berlin, right? All right. Still on salary negotiations. I just got offered a salary that is within my expected range. Does that mean that I essentially lowballed myself? Does that mean I bid too low? Stephen, what do you think?
First is if you didn't give them a value, right? Which um, for most cases, I would say try not to give a value like I'm expecting this precise sum of that. If you didn't give them a value, whatever you're giving, the general advice is always negotiate. They will very likely not say, oh, you negotiated, we are canceling the offer. At the very worst, they'll say, oh, we are not doing any more than this, right? But I would say it's always a good thing to negotiate. There are several articles and several things about how to negotiate so you don't seem like you're just some greedy person, right? But always negotiate. Then if you had given a value, mine is because depending on how the interview goes, sometimes it's as though you don't have a choice but to say a value. My heuristic is to say a value that even in your head is maybe even a little higher than you would want. So that if they say, oh, okay, you told us X amount, here's X amount, you can take that and be content. Because it's one thing to get an offer and negotiate. It's another to say, oh, I'm expecting X amount. They give you that amount and then you negotiate. It's quite different. So yeah, that's how I look at this. But then again, if you're pretty desperate, you maybe just accept immediately if it's fine for you, right? Yeah, you might as well just accept.
So this is a question for everyone on the panel, actually. So there's an offer. Someone who wants to relocate from Nigeria to either Berlin, Hamburg, Manchester, or London, and the salary offer is 40,000. So based on your experience, based on where you are, what do you think? I'm going to start with you, Wendy.
Okay, so if you have higher than 5 years experience, nope. If you have between 1 to 2 years experience, I would say it depends on, if you're a software engineer, I would say no, because like software engineers are in demand, so you might as well ask for a higher salary and get on the blue card, because with this amount you would be on a work visa, right? So yeah, with 1 to 2 years experience, I think it depends on the company, the role, where you are living. But I would go a little bit high. I would go higher even with 1 or 2 years experience, if I'm being honest, especially for tech. For your internship, this is a high figure for your internship, because minimum wage in Berlin is about, average salary for most like people that live here is about 2,500 per month, if actually. So if you calculate that, so you're earning a little bit higher, but because you're in a that's higher than you get for an internship, but because you're in an in-demand field, that's a little bit lower than you should expect.
That makes sense. So, Omotola, I'm moving to Manchester. I got an offer for 40K. What do you think?
I think for more than 5 years experience, that's definitely low, because there are people that I think for more than 5 years, maybe 80, depending on where you are. But I think in Manchester, 80 and above. For 1 to 2 years experience, depending on the company, I think like a 40K is achievable, but in some places probably not yet. Maybe after your third year, then maybe you can start talking about that price, depending on what company that you are in. And for your internships, you're probably not going to get 40K for any internship or any entry role. But I mean, I know someone that started entry level, and she works in THG in Manchester, and she said with 40K. So hey, depending on what company as well. But that was not an internship. That was like graduate role. She just started her job.
Awesome. Udo, London, I'm offered 40K. I want to relocate. Should I take it or not? I think you have to unmute him. He keeps muting himself.
Stop.
Okay, Udo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Udo, once again, asking you to unmute. Done.
Yeah, don't worry. I won't mute myself again. I did habit, you know. So
No problem,
yeah,
man.
40K, yeah, like, as mentioned, has been echoed in the room. Above 5 years, that's I mean, they could do better. 1 to 2 years, not bad. Internship, of course not, you know, in London. But then here's how you can see it though, right? If you're in Nigeria, you don't really have so much bargaining power. You can't really negotiate as much as you want to. So what most people do, that I've seen this happen a lot, they take the offer, they move out, and then they look for a better offer. So it's not like a do or die affair. You can always work around it. And I think once you are out of the country, right, you are able to negotiate even way better deals than you initially expected. But being in Nigeria, you just want to get that sponsorship. You just want to come out, you know. So that's something people do. And I've seen people move to the UK and then the salary is not what they want, you know, and then within like 8 months, they just Jappa. Went somewhere else. So people do it a lot. So yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, and to put it into perspective, 40,000 for the audience is like I think 24 million naira. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So Steven, I'm moving to Hamburg. 40K offer. Should I take it or leave it?
Similar, like same thing. 5 years, definitely not. 1 to 2 years, maybe. Like let's say 2 to 5 years is where I would say, okay, try get maybe like something that will get you on the blue card. 1 to 2 years, maybe you might just take it after a year or something, go to another company or ask for a raise. Internship, you probably won't see this, but never say never.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So I think this is the last one we're discussing on salary negotiations. So in addition to salary, I'm still going to stay on you, Steven. What else should anyone who is relocating from Nigeria to any of these destinations negotiate for?
So honestly, if you're relocated from Nigeria, you don't have a lot of bargaining power, right? So you may not be able to, let's say, ask for stock options or something, right? Especially if it's a bigger company. But most other things you would expect are actually taken care of, like by law, rights, insurance, or this or that. Then companies like to add some random perk like gym membership or transport card or something. like all these things, you add it up, is what, 100 or 200 euros a month. But I would say, at least in my experience, I don't think there's lots of perks in Germany, like in Hamburg actually, because that's where I know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just haven't seen or talked enough. But like salary is the major thing. Most other things are embedded by law within your salary.
Udo, what do you think?
So I think it depends on the country, and it also depends on the kind of company. Now in Germany, right? Because of the laws there, they don't really have anything more to offer than the base salary most times. They just offer perks, but then those perks you also pay tax on those benefits that you get. So can you really call it benefits? Because I know if they give you something, you can't call it. So if they give you benefit of like say 100 euros, right? You're actually paying tax on 40%. So effectively, they're giving you 60%, 60 euros, not 100 euros. So you pay tax on your benefits. So and then the government doesn't allow for like employee stock options, RSUs, and that kind of thing. But then in the UK, this is where it's different, right? In the UK, if you are going for much smaller startups, right? Most times I've heard a lot, they offer stock options, right? And I think it's important that you ask for these things because they can become important, you know, down the line if the company blows. So you said you just can cash out too. And yeah, but for bigger companies now, they might offer you more things. So one thing is like relocation bonus. Most companies do that. So I think they do that for more senior, more experienced people. So relocation bonus is definitely something you should ask for. if you're coming to London. Another thing is like the signing bonus. Of course, big company. I actually just knew about signing bonus like recently, and I think it was very useful for me because most big companies, they won't tell you that there's such a thing until you ask for it. I think if you're in the UK, you're targeting bigger companies, you always ask for a signing bonus. And then last but not least is the RSUs. Like, so most bigger companies have RSUs, or smaller companies have like the stock options. So RSUs are also very important if you're in the UK, especially with bigger companies too. And I think that's where most times where you sort of get the most benefits, I would say, because I don't really consider like gym membership and free jollof rice spec. So because you pay tax on it, So
Yeah, that makes
when you
sense.
look at you pay tax on the benefits, right? Yeah.
Well, it depends. I would still say you should ask, right? Because like my first company, they didn't mention that I could have relocation money, right? Until I asked for it, and then they gave it to me. But I realized that if I didn't ask for it, then I wouldn't have gotten it. So still have the list and ask. Let them tell you no, but at least you have gotten the offer. There are other things that maybe are non-monetary that could be of benefit for you. So maybe your title, for example, right? So even like internally you might be junior, but if you ask if you can have like an upgraded title, it might help you when you're trying to get your next job. Also, what's asking might be kind of like extra projects to work on. It's possible that you might, even though you have your core assignments, if there's something very interesting, maybe they have an AI department, you could also ask to like stretch into that, and who knows, it might be a stepping platform to get a new job or to transfer as soon as somebody leaves. So yeah, so just have a list of things that you could possibly ask for. Some people ask if there's some companies that have leaves, they have opportunity of getting a sabbatical, right, or working from your home company. That's not very common in Germany, but some companies do have the flexibility to do that. So unless you ask for them, then they can start to think about ways to work around things for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Amatala, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I would say like when I got my offer, I didn't negotiate, so I'm just taking all you guys' germs. So I don't really have anything to like add to this. I know it's bad, but I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, people would usually say, as a rule, always negotiate. I think down the line we still have a question about relocation. We'll talk about that then. So I think that's all we have on negotiation. I think so. We're going to start talking about preparing for relocation, and I do realize that we wanna wait. How long have we spent on this? Probably we're getting close to the end of the number of minutes we allotted to this, so we'll go faster from now on. So preparing for relocation. So Stephen, what's the difference between the EU Blue Card and the work permit? And if I am going to relocate from Nigeria, which one should I be targeting and why?
100%. If you can't get the blue card, the main difference is that the blue card you need to have at least a bachelor's degree, right? That's like requirements wise, and you need to be earning at least, I think, around 54 every year. That amount changes, but not by much, like 54, 55K a year gross. Benefits of the blue card over the work permit is, with the blue card you can get a permanent residency in 2 to 3 years, right? While for the work permit you need to stay for 5 years, I believe. Then you also, with the blue card, I believe once you've worked for, I think, 18 months, you can use that same blue card to go to a different EU country, like, because it's an EU work permit, not just the German work permit. So I think, but overall, I can't think of any benefit the work permit has over the blue card. So if you can get the blue card, get the blue card.
In what situations, Yewande, would somebody be left with no other option than to get the work permit?
Yeah, so I think everything Stephen has said is correct. Even I think the salary is 45, not 54, but I'm not sure. Like, it's online, so anyone can check it. So I think if you don't have a bachelor's degree, or if there's this thing called the Anabin in Germany. It's kind of like the West for Germany. Basically, they evaluate your school and your degree to see if it matches a German degree. Unfortunately, not all the schools in Nigeria kind of like have an equivalent. So maybe if your school is not accredited or your course was not accredited, you can't get like an Being equivalent. So if you're in that situation, you probably have to settle for a work permit instead of a blue card. And then they're also like, I think the blue card has just that advantage because it has a minimum salary. So when you're on the blue card, you know that you can't, when any company you're applying to, you can't really fall below a certain amount which you would earn. And I think that's it. Another advantage of the blue card is that it's not tied to any company. So when you can come in, get your blue card, and then decide to go to another company. So it's fine. They just change it for you with the immigration, whatever. But I don't know if a work permit might be tied to a company or not. So it has some very funny conditions attached to it sometimes that, yeah, you might as well just get a blue card and also apply for jobs. If you don't like Germany, you can apply for jobs maybe in France or in Spain, as they're all like Schengen countries and they all use the blue card.
Nice. So this question, I recognize some of us might not be married on the panel. I'm not sure. If you're married, just signify so you can take this, or if you have an experience you can relate. So I'm married with kids. Do I need my employer to know this during the interview? Can I move with my family immediately? Who wants to volunteer to take this?
I can take this. Actually, it's legal for your employers to ask you your marital status in Germany. So yeah, you don't have to tell them if you're married or not, or if you have kids, because especially for women, it can be a way to discriminate against you getting a job. So you don't have to answer this. But if you have, yes, your family, I'm not sure about your father and mother, but if you have a spouse and you have kids, if you have your blue card or your work permit, they can move with you. I think mostly for your blue card, and I think well, I'm not sure about this, so let me not mention it, but your family can move with you. That's your spouse and your children, and they can also be on your health insurance plan. So yeah, and then if you also want perks, you can mention that you have a family during your interview. If you want specific perks like childcare attached to your contracts, or you want to negotiate for childcare. So yeah.
Uda, you're going to say something about this as well.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK too, there's the spousal visa. So if you have like a tier 2, which is like the EU blue card, right, you can actually like sponsor your spouses to come and your whole family basically. And I also think that in the UK, they have this thing called like a civil partnership. So not necessarily married, so to speak, but say your girlfriend or something like that. Because I know colleagues that have moved to the UK with their girlfriends. They're not necessarily married, but you just have to prove that you are in a civil partnership.
Okay, that makes sense. So that means it's not actually tied to marriage. So when you say your whole family, does that include your dependents too as well, like your father, mother, if you have siblings?
Yeah, I think dependents, yeah, but kids below 18, I think. Below 18. Okay. That makes it, yeah, below 18, I think, yeah.
Another thing that this would probably apply to folks in Germany more. Stephen, Yewande, how do you get by? Can I get by with just English if I decide to move to either Hamburg or Berlin, or do I need to learn a new language? Stephen, do you want to go first?
You can get by. Like Germans, at least in the big cities, surprisingly speak English more than you think. But the city is not is not built so much with English in mind, right? Lots of things are written in German. Announcements most of the announcements, some also have like an English, like they would say it in German and then English. So and if you meet a random person on the street, they expect you to speak German, right? And then when you're like, oh, I can only speak English, they would struggle a bit, but yeah, basic communication is possible. Usually your workplace will be in English. Like if they hired you and they know you can't speak German, chances are your workplace is like you speak English at work. So if you're like me and you don't go out too much, right? You go to work, you have friends, maybe friends from Nigeria or something, you could actually go years without having to learn the language or just know basics. But so you don't need to, but things start getting easier just going by reading your documents, because Germans love paper. Reading your
Yeah.
right? Like everything has some contract, right? So things get easier when you don't have to pull up your phone and use Google Translate for every little thing, but you don't need to. You can get by without it.
Yewande, do you share the same opinion?
Yeah, so same. You can get by, but it depends on the level to which you want to get by. So if you want to, like, for example, now if you really want to settle in, you want to start driving, do you want a case where you can't read street signs or you can't communicate with like the police, or you need to go to the hospital because your child is sick and there's only a German doctor available there? So it depends on, so like if you're single and then you don't really, you're just living la vida loca, just here to chill, you will get by with English, you will find people like you. But if you really want to like settle in, have family, your family is going to school, your parents are coming here, things like that, you need to take them around, then I would advise that you start to learn the language just so you can settle in better.
Yeah.
Udo, so I know you moved from Berlin to London. How? What do you think?
So yeah, I think what they mentioned is true, but I would like to add a few more things too, so that people are aware of this. So one thing in Germany is that even though in most tech companies you can't do a lot of your work in English, right? The higher you go in most levels, it begins to seem like you should have like a good understanding of German. And also, it depends on the kind of companies you're working at. If you're working at older tech companies, right, you might start touching some parts of the code base that's actually written in German. So I used to work for Zalando back in Germany, right? And Zalando, they anglicized in 2013, and I joined in 2017. So that's just barely 4 years. So it got to a point where we started opening some older legacy stuff, and it was just do all over the place. Like, so you understand. So it depends on, I feel like it depends on how far you want to go. If you really know that you want to like go reach the height of your career, then you might want to consider learning the language.
That's true. Because like even management, you start having meetings with external companies and this, and it's all German people speaking German. End of year party, everybody's speaking German. Yeah. You probably should learn the language.
Okay, you've thought about it again, right?
Yeah, like I mean, you can get by, but not. Yeah, you probably should over time. You'll get enough time to learn it though.
Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Udo, on this, and then go to Omotala. Now, relocation can be quite expensive. So do you think people should actually put some money aside for relocation? If yes, what should they put money aside for?
Yeah, definitely. I think your post, I mean, Aaron has a post, by the way, Lagos to London. So I think that post basically covers most of it. So for Berlin, yeah, I think you have to put up like a sizable amount. I mean, for me, when I moved to Berlin, I think I moved with 1,500 euros, but this was because I was already doing remote at the time. So I already saved up some money. But mostly what you should be thinking of is just the down payment for the rent. I think even for London too, right? So once you're able to get enough money to just get that down payment for your rent, then you are good to go. For London now, I can't really remember because I was in a different place when I moved to London. But yeah, you really have to save some money, because your employer can give you a place for 1 month, but then after 1 month, you have to find your own place.
So, Omotala, how much do you think is like good enough to send for relocation?
Yeah, it's depending on where you're moving to. Like for places in Manchester, if you're looking for like a place for yourself, maybe like a studio apartment or something, that can be maybe like at the highest, maybe £800. And then if you're also paying deposits, that's 1.6. And then if you're thinking about, okay, what am I going to eat for that month? That's like maybe highest, budgeting another 500. So maybe save at least £2,000 out of 100, at least for that first month. And then I think that should be enough. So you start your job and start getting paid, and you'll be all right.
Yewande, what about in Berlin? So someone wants to relocate from Lagos to Berlin, right? How much money do you think they should save up for relocation?
Yeah, I would advise that you have like between 1.5 to 2K, because so like when I moved, I didn't save so much money. I almost suffered. Like it's you need to save your money, save your money, because you need, so like most standard in most cities in Germany, you need to, apart from your rent, you're going to pay about 3 months rent as deposit, and almost no landlord will take you without you paying your deposit. So they will give you back when you leave, but like that money is just sitting there, interest free, not doing anything for you. So that like you need to have that money so you can have an apartment, and then you still keep paying rent after that. Then of course you need to eat, you need to move up and down. But like the money, the real money you need to hold is that deposit money. So you're not sleeping under the bridge. So yeah, so our advice is save money for that. Then yeah, well, not a lot of companies give you like money for like air costs, like your flight, your visa, all of those things are probably not going to be reimbursed to you. So like just start saving your money down in faith so that when you're going, you won't have any difficulty.
Stephen, what do you think?
Yeah, the down payment of the rent is big. Then there's also like if you're going to move to an apartment that's not furnished, you're also going to have to buy a few things. Like even if they're secondhand, this like at the very least you will now be crossing nearly 500, 1,000. Like even if you, no matter how frugal you try to be, right? But that you may be able to push that a bit if you get like a shared apartment or something, because it's also quite tricky to get an apartment before you have 2 or 3 pay slips, because most landlords will ask for 3 pay slips before they like, and there's maybe like 10, 15 other people looking for the apartment with you. So yeah, I mean, and then there's the Schufa score, which you won't have yet. Like all these little things. So it may take a couple months, which maybe you're able to save a bit here and there. But then there's flights, there's visa, there's the first couple days. There you may be in an Airbnb for maybe a month, which is expensive in its own way. Like all these little things. So you add up, I think, save as much money as you can, especially if your company doesn't give you a relocation bonus.
So talking about companies, actually, so what we're going to talk about now is what expenses should I expect my employer to cover when I want to relocate. So I'm going to stay on you, Stephen, before I go to Udo, who will talk about his experience in London.
So as far as I know, they don't have to, and the companies, or like my company gave me a relocation bonus, but that was about it. They didn't. I had someone I could talk to. Maybe, oh, I have this question or that question, but it's not like they helped me look for an apartment or anything. They're just like, well, you may need to get an Airbnb, please. But then, for example, I know this company About You. They have a much better process. They had this entire thing before they moved. Oh, open a bank account, do this. They had a building where people can stay for, I think, 6 months, right? You pay rent, of course, but like at least you're not going around looking for this thing. So it varies. They don't have to do anything. And I know other companies where they basically did nothing, right? Or they just give you someone to take you around and show you stuff, but no money. So it varies. I think ask, try and get as much as you can, especially money, straight up money. Some apartments. Hamburg is very difficult to get an apartment, ridiculously annoying. So if they can give you an apartment, even if you have to pay, take it. And yeah, I think that's it. If they are not willing to, maybe just do it anyways, because except you have another offer, chances are you want to first leave the country. After maybe like 6 months or 8 months, you can always get a new job if you need to. I would say sometimes you suck it up and pay out of your pocket.
Okay, so Udo, I'm going to like to get your view on this. Then I'm going to talk to Omotola about what to do when they aren't willing to cover any of the expense.
So I think you should almost always expect your employer to pay for your flight costs, like the ticket and everything. So that's something your employer should do. I don't think it feels right if my employer is not willing to pay for my flight ticket. Like, nah, I mean, for me, something is definitely wrong. It's like that one should be something they take care of. But then for your 1 month stay in the place, apartments, all that stuff, this is I mean, I don't know, you either have to negotiate it or they just don't offer it. So that's something you definitely do want to be prepared for. But in my case now, my company paid for when I was moving to both Berlin and London, right? The company took care of my my flights, everything. and then they also took care of the place where I lived in for a month. But then they had something to it though. The company I worked in London, they're very cheap. So they were like, if you leave the company within 1 year, right, or within 2 years, is prorated, you have to pay a certain amount back. So for me, I think I left the company like in exactly 1 year, and I had to pay a certain amount back to them. So there is that too.
That's so hilarious.
So actually, just to add to that, also because I left my company, my initial company before a year, and then I also had to I also had to pay back some money that I got upfront.
Wow. I'm lost there.
Interesting. Amotola, so if they're willing to cover any expense, what do you think? What should the person do?
If they're not willing to pay any expense.
Yeah, if they're not willing to take care of your flight or your 1 month accommodation, what do you think the person who is about to take the offer should do?
Well, like if they're not willing to do it, then if you've not got any other like options for jobs, then I guess you just have to save and come by yourself. If not, there's no other way to like get here. That's what I'll say. But I think apart from what Udo said, another thing that some companies also pay for is like your visa application. Some companies do. Like I think I had to pay my immigration help. I had to pay my immigration help charge, which was like for 3 years, and it was like the most expensive thing. But then the actual visa application, the company usually pays for it.
Okay, so it looks like there's a common theme now, which is a couple of things that everyone has highlighted, right? The visa cost, the flight ticket, then at least 1 month accommodation, or help you source accommodation for a couple of months in Stephen's case. So I think we still have one more question on the preparing for relocation. I think this is directed to the folks in the UK, because we already talked about blue card and work permit in Germany. So in the UK, what categories of visas can tech talents look to relocate on? Who wants to go first? I want to allow Odo.
For what I know that is available, there's a tier 2 to exchange the skilled worker visa, and then there's also the exceptional talent visa, which I think is way better than the tier 2, because then it gives you a lot more flexibility to either even start your own thing or work in any other company that you want to work at with no stress. But with tier 2, it's kind of like locked in with the company. You can still move with a tier 2 visa, but then it's going to be a lot more difficult, because then you have to pay all these other things and look for the companies that are willing to like transfer you from one to the other. But I think if you can get the exceptional talent visa, which is under 2 categories, that gives you leverage, because with the talent visa, I think you're only under that visa for 3 years, and then you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, and then you can apply to become a British citizen. And then there's a promise one, which is still 5 years, but then you still have that flexibility to like move from one company to another. While with the tier 2 visa or the skilled worker visa, you have to stay with the company on that visa for up to 5 years before you then apply for indefinite leave to remain, before you then get the visa. But I think the talent or the promise visa is probably like a better one, because it just gives you a lot more flexibility.
And that makes sense. Udo, anything to add on that?
I mean, she basically, said it all. But you could also, I don't know, marry someone.
Well, there's that as well.
There's always that. Okay. So I think this is the last set of questions we'll be talking about. I do realize that we're going over time at this point, so we'll try to make it as fast as possible. So this is about when you are relocated. How do you begin to network and create new circles when you move? Yewande, do you want to take this?
Okay. So there are different ways actually, but it has to be a deliberate thing. So I think for me, I had 2 different experiences, because before I moved to Hamburg, I basically didn't have a circle like that in Hamburg. But in Berlin, before I moved, I did have one. So like some things that I did differently was, or like I would suggest that you do differently. Like even before you come, start looking for people that work or live in this country. They don't have to be Nigerians. It's easier if they're Nigerians, because then we understand ourselves in that way. But try to network with as many people as possible online. I use I used Facebook a lot. There are so many expats groups on Facebook. You would not believe it. Like expats in Germany, expats in Berlin, expats in everywhere. There are also like groups of people that travel a lot. There's this girl gone for females. There are women in tech groups. You look for groups on social media and network with people before you come. And then also, as soon as you come, church is a good place to meet people, right? Like, of course, be careful of the kind of church you go to so that they will not come and carry you. But church is a good place to meet people. Very easy, especially Nigerians. Also going for meetups and groups. Unfortunately, COVID has spoiled everything. But like online events are always also like good places to meet people. Yeah, but you have to deliberately network a lot, else you will just be by yourself.
Stephen, how did you do this when you moved to Hamburg?
I was very lucky because, to be honest, I wasn't really thinking about it, but I already knew two people who work with me at Hotels NG, like Neo and Fisaya, who are also in Hamburg. So that really helped. Like even when I landed, Neo came to get me from the airport and stuff, right? So that was really nice. I didn't plan for it. Luckily, like I have a good enough network. Like, oh, you know, someone's house, I'll just say, I'm coming to your house, right? And it's not something, I'm not really very, oh, let's go out, let's hang out type person, but it's something I didn't realize how important it was, right? Because it can get really lonely and like everybody around you is speaking German and something, and everything is just strange. So it's very important. I was just lucky that I knew people here.
So another question about broad life, which I would like Omotola to take, then we'll talk to Uda about, is cultural difference, right? What cultural difference did you have difficulty adapting to after you moved to the UK?
I think generally for me, it's just like picking up some of like the banter that like white people like have. Sometimes like you might not really be interested in some of the conversations that they might be having, and then you either need to like get into it, or like you cannot be too quiet. You have to be like inside of it, and it was a bit too difficult. The things I want to talk about, they didn't really understand, and you have to explain everything. And I just thought like, yeah, that was a bit difficult. But then after a while, like when you start to understand them and stuff like that, it gets a bit better. So I think that was probably like the most difficult one in terms of like cultural differences. But it just takes time. The more you stay here, the better it gets. That's what I'll say.
That makes sense. I think Uda is having some background. Okay, that's all right. Yewande, do you want to take this also about cultural difference that you had difficulty adapting to?
Yeah, there were a lot of things. I think mostly because, of course, there's the language barrier, right? So, okay, I think Udo is ready to talk. Yeah, but there was the language barrier. There was also considering that there are so many immigrants, especially in Berlin. Berlin is like half of Turkey is here, right? So it's like so many countries in one, and trying to understand how people do things, culture. Yeah, like it was people take smoke breaks almost every hour, for example. Like it was a lot to get used to, like a lot of the smoking, also the signs, right? A lot of the things here are like built for accessibility. So like sometimes you won't know, like if you don't look very carefully at the signs, you probably get lost. So yeah, trying to like learn all those new things I think, yeah, those were the things for me.
Yeah, I can imagine those actually. Uda, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, so it was around like the cultural differences. So one thing though, when I moved to Berlin was it was a cold shock, both literally and figuratively. So, Germans tend to be very, very brute. You know how they say they don't put words in a flower. I don't know how they say it in German. So they tend to be like very straight to the point. They just give it to you as it is. So that's something you should probably consider. You probably have to grow a thick skin before you sort of move there. But then the UK, they are like the exact opposite. You know, it's almost pretentious. Where people are always saying please, 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 and nice, nice, nice. So there is that difference. It's something you have to take into consideration. But yeah, definitely for the German one, I think especially for us software engineers, when you're doing code reviews and all that, you have to really grow a thick skin.
Yes, sir. Something I forgot to add, something that I noticed is very different, is speaking up more here than in Nigeria. Like if you see something is wrong, or if like even if it's your manager, if they say something wrong, it's like it's better for you to correct them than keep quiet, because in more cases when you keep quiet, it works. It's more harm than good for you when you keep quiet. So you always have to, if something is wrong, or if they are committing a crime there, it pays you to say, "Oga, look at them," than keeping quiet and saying, "Let us keep the
I
peace."
mean, my business.
Exactly. So sometimes it's people speak up, they see you doing something and they're telling you, no, that is wrong. So yeah, it was very different from like in Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, another question to this is, does it help to target companies that already have Nigerians? Does it help having Nigerians on your team?
I mean,
Do you think it helps?
I don't know. Like, so for example, my team, I was the only Nigerian until Red joined. Red joined like 2 or 3 months, although his stuff was already finalized by the time I was joining. I think we maybe received the offer around the same time, but I had like the whole 3 month notice. So during my onboarding, the engineering manager was already telling me that, oh, there's another Nigerian joining. I don't know if it makes much difference, because even if we're in the same company, we're on entirely different teams. But my company is pretty diverse, at least the tech part, because it's a real estate company. So almost every other department is very German heavy, but the tech is now very diverse. So on my team, like on my immediate team, you're like 8, and everybody's of a different nationality, like Belarus, Tunisia, Nigeria, Brazil, Denmark, this, that, right? So I don't know if it would have made any big difference if there was a Nigerian team or not. Maybe if I get one, I'll let you know.
Does anyone have a Nigerian on their team actually on the panel? Just curious.
I do actually. So yeah, we're 3 Nigerians on my team. One is basically German. Yeah, but I think it helped because it helps to see another Black person on the team, which was something I didn't have in my other company. And I like it's I don't know, it just gives you some level of comfort, in as much as it didn't help in a like the first Nigerian was also German and wasn't really in touch with Nigerian culture, but it helps to see another Black person. But eventually, when another Nigerian joined the team, I feel like I was able to help him settle in faster. So we don't have to talk so much every time, but he could ask me, "Oh, where are the Nigerian restaurants? Where can I buy this?" And in his first week, I was able to like give that information. So I think that was really the only way it helped. If you are a friendly person, eventually you would get along with everybody else, regard Nigerian or not.
So another question is about tax, which I think applies to everyone on the panel. How much of my salary is paid to me at the end of the month? That is how much goes into my account, because I know we're talking about salary and it did seem like a lot of money, right? So how much do you get paid at the end of the month from that amount that you advertise in your offer letter, and what benefits do you expect to get from the government? I'm going to start with Omotola.
So what you get at the end of the month is depending on like where your salary is in tax bracket. So from 12,500 to I think about 40K, you only get like 20% tax deducted, and then also there's NI that's deducted as well. And then if you also opt in for pensions, that's depending on what company. I think the minimum is 4% that gets deducted. So I think the easiest way to sort of like calculate this is if you go on Money Saving Experts, they do the calculation. So you put that down and then they'll give you exactly what you're getting. But if you're, I think from, was it like 50K and above, that goes up to, I think 40% get taxed from your salary. And then like after that even gets higher. So those are the things that are deducted. But I think the easiest way to calculate it based on what you're getting is going on sites like Money Saving Experts and putting in your numbers, and that will give you the exact number you get at the end of the month. And for benefits from the government, I think under tier 2 visas, you don't get any benefits from the government. I don't think so.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Udo. Oh, I think Right. Okay. Steven, do you want to talk about how much is paid to you at the end of the month?
Yeah, for me, right? In my specific case, I get like a little less than 60%, like after all the deductions. Not all of them is tax because there is the regular tax, there's pension, there's insurance, then there's this church tax if you so apparently the churches take their offering directly from your salary.
Mad.
But yeah, so there's that. There's also a site like you can do it, and there's a bunch of them. But you should also select the year on these sites because these rules change a little over the year. For example, I think 2021 overall there's less deductions, not by much, right? But there's less deductions than 2020. Also, if you're asked on this site, for those thinking about like Germany, to what tax category, it'll be category 1, right? So it's that category 1, and then you put in, and then you get your amounts. But I think around maybe like 55-60% is what you would see on usually, right? That's the net salary. Benefits from the government, nothing really. Like from your tax, you have to pay pension and health insurance. And you can, well, it's health insurance and pension. So you see it when you see it.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah, so same, like very similar to Stephen. Sorry, called you Afam. To Stephen. Yeah, so for Germany also your tax bracket depends on a lot of things. You're on category 1 when you're single. When you have a family, you're in another category. Then when you have kids, you are in another category of tax. So you actually pay more taxes when you're single, and then the more kids you have, the more you have a family, you pay less. It's not a lot different, but you pay lesser taxes. So that's something to consider. There's also benefits for the government. It's not so much now because you're paying for your health insurance. But I think the thing is when you lose your job, the person, the government kind of has an obligation to help you find your job if you want to find a job if you want to. So they can provide you trainings to upskill you so you can get a new job. There's also the job center, which you have access to. There's a few other benefits when you are a permanent resident. So when you are unemployed, you get paid by the government so you can pay your rent. But the disadvantage with taking those is that if you intend to become a citizen, if you start to take benefits from the government from now, it's kind of like it's a disadvantage to you in your citizenship application. So the benefits are there for everybody, but it's now your choice if you're going to take it or not. If you also have kids and you have, if you're working, there's also like the maternity leave, which you can take up to a year. You don't have to, but you can take up to a year on that. There's also like childcare benefits given by the government also in Germany, but there are a lot of these things are dependent on your conditions, also disability benefits, yeah, things like that.
That makes sense. There's something that you talked about, which is when you lose your job, the government has like the sort of responsibility to help you get another. And I think that's quite different from what we experience in the UK, right? On the tier 2 visa, which is what a lot of skilled workers would come on. I think Udo still has noise on his place, but Omotala, do you want to talk about the government's responsibility when you lose a job in the UK? Is there any?
So like I'm not quite sure if you're under like a tier 2 visa, if you still get anything. I think with this whole like corona thing that went on, there was like furlough, and then that was more of like a company thing. So like if your company furloughed you, they still like gave you a percentage of your salary, but that was about it. So I think under your tier 2 visa, your relationship really is with the company and what the company can get from the government for you. But in terms of like getting anything directly from government in terms of like your salary, I'm not quite sure about that. There's something else that I just like actually applied for, but then I think also it's just because of corona, where like I did go and get tax relief because I've been working from home, and so like they were able to like change my tax code, and so that my tax code got increased. So what that means is that every single year you get like 12,500 that it doesn't get taxed. So my tax code now increased, and so that means I'm going to get more money because I'm working from home. So those are like just other small things that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to also add to that is, I think for the tier 2, you have a certain amount of time left on your visa when you're out of a job. I think it's less than 3 months, if I recall correctly, which I don't think is the case in Berlin when you're on a blue card. So with the tier 2 visa in the UK, when you are out of a job, you essentially need to get another company to sponsor you on that same visa, else you will probably find yourself at Murtala Mohammed International Airport at some point. Yes, but I think that's different in Germany, right, Stephen?
No, I think it's similar in the sense that, so for the blue card, you have 3 months from when you're out of employment to get a new job, but most notice periods are also 3 months, right? Like I think everybody's contract I know of, it's a 3-month notice period after like your probation. So usually in reality, you get like 6 months between when your company says, okay, we are going to terminate this, to when your blue card actually expires, right? And I'm not sure how that works with now the whole unemployment thing, because I know like there's this unemployment insurance thing. And then if you're out of a job, you can't get money back, you can get training, you can get therapy, or like shall talk to some career coach or something, maybe not therapy. But I know that it's 3 months after your job expires before the blue card expires. Not sure what happens after that. You probably have to go.
I think in the UK we don't have such though, so it's like you're on your own. Boris is not going to help you do anything. So yeah, like you definitely have to sort of find a new job once you lose your visa or some form of sponsorship here in the UK. The government doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, so because we're out of time, I'm going to skip a couple of these questions, and I am going to talk about this, which is, do I have to remain with my employer for a certain period of time, and how easy is it to change jobs when I move?
You don't have to.
Short answer is no.
I think it's easier once you're here to switch jobs. Actually,
Yeah.
I think it's easier. Yeah.
So I think actually this is a fun one. Would you leave your current city or country?
Oh, my salary.
No. For me, I wouldn't. I mean, most times people in the UK, there's always this constant comparison with the US that we have every second month. We always compare with the US, but to be honest, yeah, I think I wouldn't want to leave the UK.
Yeah, I'll only leave Manchester to London because I just think it has a better social life, and that's about it.
That makes sense. So we're way out of time. We can probably take 1 or 2 questions because we even had to skip some of the ones we planned already. Does anyone in the audience have any question? So somebody is asking, actually, somebody sent a direct message to me asking, so it looks like it's quite or relatively easy to get programming jobs. What about jobs like cloud solution architect? What do you guys think about roles like that?
I think it's just, if it seems it's easier for programming because that's what is sort of in demand, right? And it's also a field where the skills are transferable, right? Like if you are coding in Nigeria, it's the same, it's mostly the same code in Germany. So for something like cloud solutions architect, I bet that's also easy-ish. The issue is maybe there's just not as many companies looking for cloud solution architects. But if you do see those roles, I assume it'll be a similar process.
Yeah, I think some of also the lessons that we talked about at the beginning of the session, where we talked about how to actually do targeted job search, I think they would apply in this situation at least. I mean, the good part is whoever missed those particular part of the discussion, this is recorded, we'll share the recording, and you can watch that particular part and get some ideas from that. I think we can just...
Yeah, let me
Yes,
just ask you
yes.
that. So there are also lesser known roles in tech, especially in the UK, that also sponsor visas. One of them is testing, right? So they sponsor visa as much visas as they do for software engineers, but not very many people in Nigeria know about this. So I know a bunch of people that are testers here that got like tier 2 visa sponsorship. So yeah, it's definitely something people should start looking at.
Yeah,
That's very helpful.
it's also the same thing here. So they're also testing jobs. They're also solution architecture jobs, but like not as much because it is like a cloud solution architect is mostly needed in big companies. But you see most companies hiring in Germany as startups and small companies who just need like someone that's good with DevOps, which a lot of developers can do, right? So it's more targeted to like your research which location needs this role that I have and how can I get in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. One more question is, I think if you would do something different about your initial relocation process, what is that going to be? Based on the lessons you've learned. I'm going to start with Omotola.
Because I didn't relocate at the start of my job, but if I was to go back in time, the only thing I would do differently is negotiate.
Nice.
For me, the only one thing I would do differently though is I would have started applying for jobs abroad right out of leaving the uni. Like I didn't know about this for like I left in 2013, did a few things 2014, got my first professional kind of role in 2015, and then I moved in 2017. But if I have to go back, right from the day I'm writing my final exams, I'll be applying to roles in the UK or Germany, like way earlier.
Oh, Steven.
Actually, nothing much, right? Like thinking about it, yeah, there's nothing I would really change about how things went.
Yewande.
I think for me, looked for more sessions like this because also when I was applying and when I was coming, I didn't know so many people that were out of the country. I just knew a few people and I trusted I could do it. So I would have researched, found more people and asked more questions, networked a lot better. And then use that information to make more informed choices.
Okay, so I think we'll take this one as the last question and try to close out this session. I have a meeting with a company in Poland on Tuesday, but I put a small figure for my desired salary. I am almost certain we've actually discussed something like this. What is your advice to get a better offer? And this person said they've already passed the technical interview. Udo.
Bro, I'll tell you, to be honest with you, I would say take it, right? Because right now it's very hard to get roles out here in Europe, you know. There's this wave of nationalism that's sweeping across most countries now, and they're closing up their borders, and tech has given us the opportunity to move around. Mm-hmm. I would say take it, move to Poland, and then from Poland, it will be easier to get any other job to anywhere else in the world, you know. So sometimes that first one is just to maybe get you outside of the country, you know. So.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you are lucky enough to have maybe another interview, you're also going through the process or something else, maybe you can say, this or that. But yeah, if it's the only offer, maybe just, if you've already said it, just take it.
Yeah. So, thank you guys. This was supposed to be 1 hour, 30 minutes, but we spent over 2 hours on it. Thank you for joining, Omotola, Steven, Udo, and Yewande. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the session, we're thinking about making this a series. And that means looking at different destinations and getting people who have ideas or have experiences that they could share around moving to each of these destinations. So we're considering talking about North America. I think in the next session. We haven't confirmed that, but we have a couple of people who have showed interest in talking to us about North America. So that's comparing the US and Canada and asking a lot of the questions that would help you make a decision on whether to move to the US or move to Canada. You can always see what we're planning on this particular link. We would also share this recording. I believe we can share it, right, Abisoye?
Yeah, tomorrow
Awesome.
evening latest.
Awesome. So we'll share a recording of this. We'll add the link to the page too, so you can see, and you can see some of the things we are thinking. Again, thank you very much, Yewande, Amotola, Udo, and Stephen. This was really wonderful, and I am sure a lot of people have answered their questions. If you have some last words before we close this out.
I wanted to say just about jobs. I know right now it's really hard to get roles, it's especially harder with the pandemic that we're in now. I would say try and reach out to most people here and try and get referrals, because sometimes referrals go a long way. So reach out to people, try and get referrals, and just to help our process.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, most companies do have referral programs. So if you see a company that you like and you see a job, even if you see the job on their site, if you search around and you see anybody that works there, you can reach out to them and ask for a referral.
I think like there's not even only one way to get a job. Like people are getting like jobs on Twitter. I think there's this guy that got like a job from Shopify, and it was through like his Twitter thing. So just like search far and wide and like apply to the companies directly, and hopefully you get something. Like Udo said, it's quite difficult, but good luck.
Yeah, same thing. Like it was really difficult. There's also something, if we had more time to address, there's also like the difficult visa process, which I think a lot of us went through. So just expect, like, it's very hard, unfortunately, but it's not impossible. So yeah, you can reach out to any of us on Twitter if you find open offers in our company and you want a referral, and you are experienced, or you can do what's in the job description. So I am open to referring if you want, or if you meet the requirements. So you can always reach out to me on Twitter.
All right. Thank you very much. And that is goodbye from my end.
Thanks.
Thanks, Abisoye, for hosting this. This was really, really good. Thanks for giving us your Zoom platform to do this as well.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.